sudden jolt that woke me up that night wasn't just my body betraying me. It was the start of a fall I couldn't stop, a collapse that took everything I thought was real down with it. It was that feeling, that sickening, disorienting, hypnagogic jerk that throws you awake, that twitch that fools your brain into thinking you're falling. Except I wasn't just falling in a dream. I was falling out of my own life thanks to the one person I trusted most in the world. I still wake up sometimes, drenched in a cold sweat, feeling the echo of that panic, and I have to ask myself, and I have to ask all of you listening right now, was I wrong for the way I reacted when the truth finally hit me? Tell me honestly, if you felt the entire foundation of your reality crumble beneath you in an instant, would you have acted with more grace, more control, or would you have done exactly what I did, maybe even worse? The story, the real suffocating story, didn't start with that twitch, of course. It started softly, gently, the way all the best and most dangerous lies do. It started 7 years ago, in a quaint little bookstore cafe just off the university campus. That's where I met Alex. I was buried deep in a textbook trying to cram a semester's worth of economic theory into one miserable night, fueled by terrible coffee and sheer desperation. Alex, a philosophy major with eyes that could genuinely make you forget the very concept of time, simply walked over and asked if I was reading The Wealth of Nations, ironically. That was Alex, witty, a little bit arrogant, and devastatingly charming. We spent the next 4 hours talking, not about economics or philosophy, but about everything important, our childhood dreams, the irrational fear of deep water we both shared, and the utterly mundane things that somehow felt profound when we shared them. I walked out of that cafe feeling less like I'd just met a person, and more like I'd finally found the missing piece of a puzzle I hadn't even realized I was working on. It was instant, profound, and utterly overwhelming. Our life together quickly became what I always imagined a perfect life should look like. We moved into a tiny apartment, a shoebox in the city with fantastic light and even more fantastic shared rent. We painted the walls a ridiculous shade of blue and spent our weekends building cheap IKEA furniture that threatened to collapse every time we looked at it wrong. Alex was my anchor. They were the calm to my storm, the quiet patience to my restless energy. I am by nature a worrier, a catastrophizer. Every small setback felt like the end of the world. Alex had this incredible grounding ability to look at me, smile, and say, "We'll figure it out just like we always do." And suddenly the mountain became a molehill. Our relationship was built on a foundation of absolute, unshakable trust. We shared everything: our bank passwords, our most embarrassing high school memories, the terrifying blueprint of our future goals. I truly believed that there was nothing in this world that could ever come between us because we were, without exaggeration, soulmates. It's a corny word, I know, but it was the only one that fit. We got engaged 4 years in. A beautiful, quiet proposal on the roof of our ridiculously blue apartment building, under a sky full of city stars. The ring was simple, an heirloom from Alex's grandmother, and it meant more to me than any diamond ever could. It symbolized family, history, and a future I desperately wanted. The cracks started subtly, like hairline fractures in the concrete of a perfectly constructed building, easy to overlook until the whole thing collapses. It began about a year before our planned wedding. Alex started working longer hours. They'd always been dedicated to their career. They were a marketing analyst, a job that required intense focus and long meetings, especially with clients in different time zones. I understood. I truly did. I was busy too, trying to climb the ladder at my own demanding job in publishing. But the late nights turned into entire weekends spent preparing for a pitch, and the quick, loving texts during the day dwindled into a single, exhausted, "Good night, love you," just before they fell asleep. The emotional intimacy, the thing I treasured most, started to feel like a distant memory. I missed our old routine, the late-night talks on the couch, the spontaneous movie nights, even the shared silence that was so comfortable. When I brought it up gently, Alex would immediately get defensive, which was completely unlike them. "Are you accusing me of not working hard enough?" They would ask, their voice tight with what seemed like genuine offense. "I'm doing this for us, for our future, to pay for this wedding you keep saying you want." And I, being the one who hated conflict, would immediately retreat, apologizing for being needy or insecure. I internalized the distance, blaming my own demanding nature, my need for constant reassurance. I told myself I needed to be more supportive, more understanding of the pressure they were under. This was the first and most critical mistake I made, sacrificing my own intuitive alarm bells for the sake of perceived peace. The excuses became more elaborate. There were sudden mandatory business trips, always last minute, always to places like Chicago or Dallas, cities I knew they hated. There were all-day seminars where their phone was suspiciously off-limits. The worst was when they started locking their work laptop. Alex had never locked their laptop before. Our lives were entirely intertwined. There was no need for digital walls. When I asked about it, their answer was clipped and dismissive. New company policy. Confidential client data, you know how it is. I knew that was a lie. I worked in an industry with confidential data. I knew the protocols. But I swallowed the discomfort, pushed the fear down, and told myself I was being paranoid. I kept repeating the mantra, Alex loves me, Alex would never. Then came the night of the jolt. I had gone to bed alone again. It was 2 a.m. and Alex was supposedly closing a massive deal at the office. I was drifting right on the edge of sleep, that beautiful, heavy sensation of letting go. And then, the twitch. My whole body seized, my muscles tightening into a painful knot, and I bolted upright, my heart hammering against my ribs. I wasn't just awake. I was acutely, unnervingly alert, and in that sharp moment of shock, my eyes fell on the nightstand. Alex's phone was sitting there. Alex never left their phone at home when they were working late. It was their lifeblood, their connection to clients. The sight of it was like a siren wailing in a quiet room. Every single red flag I had ignored, every suppressed fear, every tiny suspicion I had dismissed as my own paranoia, converged in that single, horrifying realization. Alex wasn't at work. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, the phone a black, ominous rectangle demanding my attention. The old me, the trusting me, would have simply taken a deep breath, perhaps sent a text and gone back to sleep. But the new me, the one battered by a year of emotional neglect and thin excuses, couldn't. The foundational trust was already compromised. I reached for it. It was a conscious, agonizing decision. A definitive line crossed and I knew it. But the alternative, the crushing uncertainty, was unbearable. I needed to know what the falling feeling was about. I needed to know what I was falling into. I picked it up. It was password protected. My stomach dropped. We had always known each other's passwords, but I tried the old ones, the easy ones, the anniversaries, the birthdays. None of them worked. Panic began to set in, a cold, hard knot. Then I remembered something Alex had joked about months ago. A random sequence of numbers they'd used for an experimental work project's temporary login. The first 3 digits of our apartment address followed by the last 2 digits of the year we met. I typed it in, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped the phone. The screen unlocked. I didn't even have to look for the evidence. It was right there, staring at me from the lock screen notifications. A torrent of messages from an app I didn't recognize, but whose icon, a stylized rose, looked sickeningly familiar from a friend's casual dating story. The messages were recent, within the last 2 hours. I clicked the app. The profile picture was Alex, but the name was Lex. And the messages, oh God, the messages. They weren't just flirting. They were deep, intimate conversational threads stretching back 11 months. 11 months of my life, the year I had spent blaming myself. The year I had spent waiting up alone. The year I had planned our future and our wedding was the same year Alex was building a parallel life with someone else. The name that flashed most frequently was Chloe. The content was brutal. There were pictures not just of Alex, but of Chloe, beautiful, younger, laughing in a way I hadn't seen Alex laugh in a year. There were plans for a weekend trip to Dallas, the very business trip Alex had left for 2 weeks prior. But the absolute soul-crushing blow, the thing that made me gasp and clutch the phone until my knuckles were white, wasn't a picture or a simple "I love you." It was a message from Alex, sent only yesterday. Can't wait to finally tell them it's over. I've already cleared out my bank account, and the deposit on the new place is paid. She won't see it coming, babe. It's just a matter of timing now. The betrayal wasn't just a physical affair. It was a cold, calculated plan to end our life. To steal my time, my trust, and my future, all while pretending to plan our wedding. The whole structure of our life, the blue walls, the heirloom ring, the shared dreams, the very concept of us, didn't just crumble. It exploded. I was right back to that terrifying jolt, but this time I wasn't just falling. I had already hit the ground and the pain was all-consuming. I threw the phone across the room and it hit the wall with a sickening plastic thud. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there frozen in the middle of our bed, in the middle of our lie, and the silence in the apartment was the loudest thing I have ever heard. The immediate aftermath was a blur of hyperventilation and a terrifying, cold clarity. I knew Alex was coming home soon. I knew I couldn't confront them in that state. I needed a plan. I needed to move from a state of victimhood to a state of absolute strategic control. I got out of bed moving like a ghost. I didn't clean up the phone. I left it exactly where it landed, the screen now cracked and dark. I went straight to Alex's laptop, the one with the new company policy password. I tried the same sequence, the apartment and the year. It worked. The lie was consistent, even in its execution. I logged in and my eyes immediately went to the financial tabs. The message I'd read, "I've already cleared out my bank account," was true. Our joint savings, the account meant for our first house and our wedding, was zero. Alex had transferred every penny into a new single-person account. But I was still on the joint account. And I remembered. I had always been the one who managed the credit cards, the one who handled the investment accounts. Alex had never paid attention to that, trusting me with the mundane details. I was still linked as the primary authorized user on the two largest investment accounts. Accounts Alex's parents had started for them years ago and that they had completely forgotten about, seeing them as untouchable future assets. I spent the next 2 hours dismantling Alex's financial future piece by piece. It was surgical, emotionless, and terrifyingly easy. I didn't take the money. That would be illegal, and I didn't want to sink to their level. Instead, I opened up all the maximum risk, high volatility stock options I could find within the portfolio. I shifted every single stable, long-term investment they had into the riskiest, most speculative ventures, ensuring that with one wrong market shift, they stood to lose 80% of their net worth overnight. I set up automatic, maximum monthly contributions from the remaining savings into these high-risk accounts. I wanted their future to be as unstable and as violently unpredictable as they had just made mine. It felt like an act of divine, desperate justice. Then I quietly packed a single bag. My passport, my essential documents, a handful of clothes, and the heirloom engagement ring. I left the ring on Alex's pillow. I didn't leave a note. The silence was the statement. By 4:30 a.m. I was in a taxi heading to the airport. I bought a one-way ticket to the farthest place my money could take me. And here's where the internal conflict really began, and where I turned back to you. I did all of that without a word, without a confrontation, fueled by shock and a primal need for survival and retribution. I didn't give Alex a chance to explain, to apologize, or to beg. I saw the calculated cruelty of their plan, the financial depletion, the secret timeline, the absolute disrespect, and I answered it with a strategic demolition of my own. So that's the situation I was in. I had the smoking gun, the full story of the year-long betrayal, and the knowledge of a financial exit plan. I had to make a choice. A dramatic, emotionally messy confrontation that would have likely ended in Alex lying their way through tears, and me being left heartbroken but financially intact. Or a silent, cold-blooded act of self-preservation and calculated, devastating revenge. Before I tell you what happened next, what I did after I landed, and how Alex finally reacted when they discovered the wreckage of their life and mine, I want you to pause, right here. Go down to the comments below and tell me honestly, what would you have done in my shoes? Would you have confronted them face to face, or would you have walked away, detonating the lie on your way out? Landed in Lisbon, a city I had always dreamed of visiting but never had the chance. I spent the first 3 days in a state of dissociative exhaustion, sleeping 18 hours a day, eating only when my stomach cramped with protest. On the 4th day, I finally felt the strength to engage with the world and, more importantly, with the wreckage I had left behind. I bought a cheap burner phone and a new SIM card. The first call I made wasn't to Alex. It was to a good friend who was also a lawyer, a very sharp, quiet woman named Sarah. I told her everything, skipping none of the messy details, including my financial maneuvers. Sarah listened patiently, her voice low and calm. She immediately assured me that while the stock market shift was ethically questionable, it wasn't illegal. I was the authorized user. And it was a joint investment account, meaning I had full trading rights. The biggest problem was the marriage license we had filed for, which now needed to be dissolved legally, and the stolen joint savings. She took over the legal filing, ensuring I was protected and Alex couldn't claim any future assets. It was Sarah who delivered the final, crushing blow to Alex. Alex had called me incessantly, their initial panic text morphing from "Where are you?" to "I know you were on my phone, call me, we can talk," and finally to desperate, unhinged pleas for me to return. I never answered. Instead, I sent Sarah the screenshot of Alex's message to Chloe. "I've already cleared out my bank account, and the deposit on the new place is paid." Sarah used that single message as a key piece of evidence in the legal separation filing, demonstrating a premeditated, malicious attempt to defraud the marital union and a clear abandonment of the shared home and finances. When Sarah finally called Alex to serve them with the initial paperwork and the restraining order I had filed, she also delivered my message, cold and clear. "Your actions were premeditated. Your partner is aware of the situation and has taken steps to secure their future. You will receive the details of the financial adjustment shortly, and I advise you to contact your own counsel immediately. Do not attempt to contact my client again." The climax of the story, the moment Alex realized the full extent of the hole they had dug, didn't come from my actions but from the slow, agonizing domino effect of their own greed. It happened 3 weeks later. I was sitting on a bench overlooking the Tagus River in Lisbon, finally feeling a fragile sense of peace, when I got a text on the burner phone from Sarah. It simply said, "The market just dipped. He's going to notice." That day, a massive tech scandal hit the news, and the speculative stocks I had sunk Alex's forgotten assets into plummeted. Alex had likely been too busy dealing with the legal filings and the fallout with Chloe, who, by the way, had immediately dumped them when she realized Alex was not only abandoning their long-term partner, but also facing a legal disaster and possible ruin, to check the account. They had been counting on that nest egg for their new life. When they finally checked the investment account, they didn't just see a loss. They saw utter devastation. The amount was catastrophic, wiping out their entire future savings in one violent market correction. The financial equivalent of 1,000 hypnagogic jerks all at once. The single voicemail I listened to from Alex, weeks after the fact, was the only communication I ever allowed. Sarah sent me the audio clip, advising me not to listen, but I needed to. I needed that final piece of closure. It wasn't the voice of the charming, witty philosophy student I fell in love with. It was a broken, panicked stranger. The message was a rambling monologue of pure agony. Please call me. I don't understand why. How could you do this? Everything is gone. Chloe left. They told my parents. I'm ruined. I never meant for this to happen. I was going to tell you. It was all going to be okay. Please, I can fix the money. Just tell me how. Just tell me you didn't mean to. I'm falling apart. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I feel like I'm falling. He was living my fear. The fear of the sudden, devastating plunge. And hearing it, I felt nothing. No triumph, no revenge, just a cold, heavy emptiness. The lie was dead, and so was my love for him. The aftermath has been long, quiet, and surprisingly peaceful. I never went back to the old life. I stayed in Lisbon, found a small part-time remote job in my field, and started to rebuild. The fear of commitment, the intense distrust is still there, a constant shadow, but it's manageable. I finally filed for a no-fault divorce 6 months later. Alex signed the papers without contest, probably too numb and defeated to argue. The story of what happened to them, the sudden dramatic loss of money and the public humiliation of the affair, became the stuff of workplace legend, a cautionary tale about taking trust for granted. Alex lost their job, unable to cope with the stress and the constant need to explain the financial ruin. They moved back in with their parents, a ghost of the person I once knew. As for me, I learned the most painful lesson of my life, that the person you think is your safe harbor can be the one who intentionally steers you into a storm. But I survived the wreck. I had to learn to trust my own instincts again, to stop apologizing for my need for emotional honesty. The whole experience was a brutal awakening, that violent jolt that forced me to see the dangerous reality instead of the comfortable dream. Now when I feel a hypnagogic jerk, that sudden falling sensation, I don't panic. I just smile a little because I know I'm awake now and I'm grounded. The real fall already happened, and I walked away from the impact. So that's my story. It's messy, it's dramatic, and yes, it's full of choices I made out of pain and cold self-preservation. I did what I had to do to survive a calculated attempt to destroy my life. If you listened to this whole sprawling, exhausting story, and you found yourself nodding along, if you felt my pain and rage, then I ask you this. Like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more stories like this, stories of betrayal, revenge, and ultimately survival. And please, share your final honest thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Tell me what you think of the silent revenge and whether I should have just walked away clean. I'll be down there reading all of your opinions because sometimes you just need a community to help you process the wreckage. I'll see you all in the next story.